At 2:17 a.m., a trembling emergency call reached the police dispatcher, and the voice on the other end whispered a single sentence that made every officer in the room freeze. She was supposed to be dead, but she just walked back into her house. The story you are about to hear is one of the most disturbing and baffling true crime cases ever. Recorded a kidnapping that began in terror, unfolded in silence, and ended in a way no investigator, no profiler, and no family member could ever have predicted. This is a dark case files investigation into the kidnapping that ended in the most unexpected way. It was the spring of 2009 in the quiet suburban town of Elmridge, a place defined by trimmed lawns, routine schedules, and the shared belief that nothing truly evil ever happened there. The victim was 34-year-old Lavra Mitchell, a school librarian known for her calm demeanor, predictable habits, and deeply rooted sense of responsibility. She lived alone in a small blue house at the end of Hawthorne Street, a home she inherited from her grandmother, and she followed the same routine every single day. She woke up at 6, jogged for 20 minutes, left for work at 7:30, returned at 4, cooked dinner, read, and slept. To neighbors, she was the embodiment of normal. To friends, she was private but kind. To her family, she was dependable and cautious. No one could imagine how she would suddenly become the center of a true crime nightmare. On the night she vanished, Lavra finished her shift late due to inventory work at the school library. Security cameras showed her locking the doors at exactly 9:14 p.m. She waved to the janitor, walked to her car, and drove home. That drive should have taken 12 minutes. She never arrived. By morning, her car was found abandoned on the side of a service road just 3 miles from her house, keys still in the ignition, driver door slightly open, and her phone missing. There were no signs of struggle, no broken glass, and no witnesses. It was as if she had simply stepped out of existence. When Lavra failed to show up for work the next day and did not respond to messages, her sister reported her missing. Within hours, the case escalated from a routine disappearance to a full-scale investigation. Police immediately considered kidnapping. The location of the car suggested it had been stopped deliberately. The absence of personal items pointed to abduction rather than voluntary disappearance. Detectives canvassed the area, searching for surveillance footage, tire marks, or anything out of place. But Elmridge offered nothing. Days passed, then weeks. Then a month. Lavra Mitchell became a name on flyers, a photograph shared on news channels, a face framed by the words missing and endangered. The emotional toll on her family was devastating. Her parents refused to change her bedroom, convinced she would come back. Her sister replayed their last conversation repeatedly, searching for hidden clues. The town organized candlelight vigils, and rumors began to circulate. Some believed Lavra had a secret life. Others whispered about a stalker. The police followed every lead. They interviewed coworkers, ex-partners, neighbors, and even distant acquaintances. One suspect emerged early, a former boyfriend named Daniel Cross, a volatile relationship that ended 2 years prior. He had a history of jealousy and had sent several angry messages after the breakup. Police questioned him extensively, searched his apartment, and analyzed his digital footprint. Nothing tied him to the disappearance. He had an airtight alibi. Another theory pointed to a serial offender known to operate along service roads targeting lone female drivers. Yet no matching cases appeared in the region. The investigation stalled, and hope began to fade. Then, 13 months after Lavra vanished, something happened that shattered every assumption. At exactly 2:17 a.m., Lavra Mitchell walked barefoot into the local police station. She was thin, pale, and visibly shaken. Her hair was unevenly cut. Her clothes were unfamiliar, oversized, and stained with dirt. She carried no identification. The desk officer did not recognize her at first. When she spoke her name, the room went silent. Within minutes, detectives were rushing to the station. Her family was awakened by phone calls they thought they would never receive. She was alive. But the relief quickly turned into confusion. Lavra did not look like a rescued victim. There were no frantic screams, no dramatic escape. She was calm, almost eerily composed. She asked for water, sat quietly, and waited. During the initial medical exam, doctors found no signs of physical abuse beyond minor scars and malnutrition. There were no restraints marks, no fresh injuries. When questioned, Lavra agreed to talk, but only after a full night of rest. Investigators prepared for what they assumed would be a horrifying account of captivity. What they heard instead became one of the strangest statements ever recorded in a true crime file. Lavra explained that on the night she disappeared, she was stopped by a man pretending to be a stranded motorist. He asked for help, she slowed down, and within seconds, she was forced into his vehicle. She remembered a cloth over her face, darkness, and waking up in a remote cabin. But here, the story took a sharp turn. She said she was not chained, not locked in a basement, not beaten or tortured. The man whom she refused to name told her she was not a prisoner, but a guest who could never leave. He took her phone, disconnected her from the outside world, and imposed a strict routine. She was given books, music, chores, and even a small garden to tend. Any mention of escape was met with silence, not threats. Over time, days blended together. Lavra described a gradual psychological transformation. Fear faded into adaptation. Adaptation turned into compliance. Compliance eventually blurred into something she struggled to define. She said she was not in love with her captor, but she also was not desperate to leave. The cabin was isolated, surrounded by miles of forest. There were no roads she could navigate, no landmarks, no contact with humanity. Investigators immediately focused on identifying the location and the kidnapper. But Laura provided a final twist. She said the man died 6 weeks before she returned. According to her, he collapsed outside the cabin while chopping wood. She tried to help, but it was too late. Panic set in. She waited days, unsure of what to do. Eventually, hunger and fear of isolation pushed her to leave. She followed a stream downhill for days until she reached a service road, flagged down a truck, and asked to be dropped off near town. The kidnapper, the crime, the year-long disappearance, all ended not with rescue or arrest, but with death by an unexplained heart failure. Police launched a massive search for the cabin. Using satellite data, forest maps, and Laura's fragmented memories, teams combed through hundreds of square miles. Nothing was found. No cabin, no body, no evidence. Laura's account raised serious doubts. Some detectives believed she was lying or covering for someone. Others suspected Stockholm Syndrome. A third group quietly entertained the possibility that she had staged her own disappearance and constructed a story to avoid accountability. But financial records showed no preparation. Psychological evaluations showed trauma consistent with prolonged isolation. There was no evidence she benefited from vanishing. Media coverage exploded. Headlines questioned her story. Commentators argued. True crime communities dissected every word of her statement. The case officially remained open, classified as an unresolved kidnapping with a deceased suspect. Lavra declined further interviews and disappeared from public view once again, this time by choice. Years later, hikers reported finding remnants of an abandoned cabin deep in a restricted forest zone. But by the time authorities arrived, nothing identifiable remained. Was it the place she described, or a coincidence fueled by public obsession? To this day, no one knows who took Lavra Mitchell, why he kept her alive, or why he died without ever being found. The kidnapping that was supposed to end in tragedy instead ended in quiet uncertainty, leaving behind more questions than answers. Was Lavra a victim who adapted to survive, or an unreliable narrator shaped by isolation? Did the kidnapper truly exist, or was the real mystery hiding in plain sight? In the world of true crime, some cases refuse to provide closure, and this is one of them. This has been a Dark Case Files true crime story that reminds us how fragile certainty can be when darkness chooses silence over violence. What do you think really happened to Lavra Mitchell, and who was the man who vanished without a trace? Share your theory in the comments, and if you want more haunting investigations like this, subscribe to Dark Case Files and stay with us in the shadows.